Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, Greg Majeski, your personal weatherman, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your Friday, September 20th, 2024. Let's go take a look at what we're tracking here for today with your weather headlines, as we're going to give you an update here on your weekend forecast. Not looking too bad for at least parts of the country. Some parts will have to be dealing with some wet weather there. We'll look at the latest as far as the Gulf concerns for next week. We're still looking at the potential for something to develop out into the Gulf of Mexico. It's just a question of strength and what track it's going to take. We'll talk about that. And then we're also going to take a look at your winter outlook. Yeah, hot off the presses. We'll take a look and see what you can expect as we head toward December, January, and February. Now, before we get into all that, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider it. We had a lot of new subscribers here to the channel. I'd like to welcome you on board. So go ahead and join us. 50% of you haven't joined just yet. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you enjoy and like this report, please give me a thumbs up, as it does help with the YouTube algorithm. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at your current satellite imagery here across the country. You got this system here crossing the Great Lakes right now. Got some residual clouds still slowly starting to clear out from the areas of New England. Pretty quiet across the southeast, and a little few clouds over toward Colorado. Another little system here diving down into Montana and parts of Idaho here on your Friday. All right, let's take a look at your current surface map right here. Here's some rains here coming through areas of Michigan, the UP of Michigan, stretching back in toward Illinois. We'll take a look at some of that rain there here in just a second. A few scattered showers down in South Florida, but the bulk of the country looking pretty quiet, although a bit chilly out here. I got 34 in Reno. Definitely chilly out there in California, as I've been saying, with some below normal temperatures out here in the west, but that's going to be modifying a little bit as we go ahead over the next 10 days or so. Let's look at your current watches and warnings. One of the big stories we're going to be dealing with this weekend is, although summer officially ends on the 22nd, for a lot of the country, we're going to be dealing with summertime temperatures. We do have some heat advisories up here across Oklahoma and Arkansas. And in fact, a lot of conditions here in the middle of the country are going to be very, very summer-like, with temperatures running well above normal for this time of year. Again, looking at Illinois, again, we got some of this rain that's certainly passing on through here. Even a few rumbles of thunder there just sliding through the Decatur area there in Springfield, there across the central portions of Illinois here for this morning. And looks like things will be improving here a little bit later here for this afternoon. Now, we're taking a look at Nauvoo, Illinois, right there on the river, Mississippi River. A beautiful shot here, their downtown area here. And again, we were talking about those unseasonably warm temperatures. Yeah, it's going to be partly cloudy here today with a high temperature right around 90. That's temperatures are going to be running about 12 degrees above normal for this time of year. Hey, and if you'd like to nominate your city as the weather city of the day, and you got a good webcam somewhere, or maybe here on YouTube somewhere, go ahead and post that link down below, and we'll consider it for a future use for the weather city of the day. All right, let's go ahead and take a look now from the Storms Prediction Center, as we're going to start to take a look at the next 3 days. We're talking about Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as far as where you can expect some active potential severe weather here. We just got a couple areas we're watching. You got a couple of those green areas showing up in there with the potential for some marginal severe weather. So we're talking about this green zone here across portions of Kansas and Nebraska. And then you got the little front there coming through portions of Michigan, stretching back toward Missouri. So just marginal risk. Some gusty winds are going to be the main threat here. As we look at the categories on this, again, tornado risk not really involved there. A couple hail spots there in the green across Indiana, Illinois, and parts of Kansas. And the high wind threat also generally in the same zones with that marginal risk. Maybe get some wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour here on your day one outlook. Let's look at your day two outlook here. Again, we got a little pocket we're going to have to watch there as we head toward the areas toward New Mexico and Texas. Got a little slight risk there. We got a little marginal risk here with another system coming into portions of Minnesota back toward Nebraska. Another little pocket here across portions of Pennsylvania and down toward Virginia as well for your day two outlook there. The main threat, I think, for your day two, again, is going to be gusty winds. That's going to be the concerns there in those pockets, with that yellow slight risk being the higher area to be concerned there across New Mexico and parts of extreme western Texas for your Saturday. How about Sunday? Again, we're looking at the weekend, so let's look at Sunday's outlook here, and still looking at that marginal risk for severe weather there. And also going to be bringing some pretty hefty rains in there too, kind of stretching through portions of Missouri, stretching right back in toward Texas there with that marginal risk with some gusty winds. Again, going to be your main threat there on your Sunday. So we got some active weather here to watch here through the weekend. with a series of little weaker systems that'll be kind of pulling out of the Rockies and there in the plains as you got the cool air kind of bouncing into that definitely warmer air in the middle of the country. Looking at your 3 to 7 day hazards outlook, again, you got that painted green area there going from Nebraska back over toward northern Illinois and include Chicago and Indiana. That's where the heavy rain threat will be set with those as those series of disturbances kind of roll on out there. And that'll be what we'll be watching there going through the weekend and into early next week. So again, recapping your day one severe outlook here for your Friday. Again, we're looking at marginal risk for severe weather. This includes Indianapolis, Kansas City, Wichita, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Grand Rapids, Michigan, all in the bullseye there for potential for severe weather here on your Friday. Now let's go ahead and talk about the tropics. Here's the latest here as we are tracking 3 areas of disturbed weather. The 2 areas out in the Atlantic, only about 20% chance for development. I'm not really concerned about that. What I am concerned about, obviously, still continues to be what's going to happen with this system down here. This is the area of concern. They're in the orange. So we're looking at about a 40% chance of something to develop. That's been pretty consistent with the model runs. Where it goes once it develops, that remains in doubt and still remains very much in question here as we go through the early next week and into the middle of next week. Now, here's the latest satellite imagery on this right now. As you can kind of see this, I'll go ahead and put this into motion for you here as this is loading up here. And again, nothing to be concerned about here. Again, we're watching those 2 areas out in the Gulf, but we haven't got anything yet to really develop down in where we're expecting this tropical system to run. We're watching thunderstorms to kind of build in this zone in here and then kind of, again, move up toward the north as we go in through next week. So, and there's 2 trains of thought on what's going to happen with that tropical system, okay? And what it looks like right now is that it's going to possibly stall in the Bay of Campeche for a few days and kind of linger beyond the 10-day forecast. Remember, I don't usually like going beyond about 10 days with any kind of forecast with that. Definitely plenty of warm waters for this to develop, even in the Bay of Campeche and there across areas of the Western Caribbean, as we've got some very, very warm water temperatures. You're looking at water temperatures in here running between 85 and 87 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, some very warm waters for anything tropical to develop to feed off of. Here's the latest tropical European ensemble model. Again, you understand what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about how this thing's going to. Let me go ahead and freeze this real quick. I want to go ahead and take this all the way to the end of its run, and I'm going to go ahead and freeze this at the end, so you can kind of get an idea of the different tracks here. So I'm going to go ahead and freeze that right there. All right, so we got several things of thought, trains of thought here. With the system. You see the big cluster down here in the Bay of Campeche. What that means is there's something going in there and kind of getting stuck there. Or that's solution number 1. Solution 2 says, nope, something's going to grab it and bring it and drive it into the southeast coast. So there's 2 trains of thought there. We're either going to get a system that's going to stall in the Bay of Campeche and linger beyond the 10 days, because this only goes out about 10 days, or we get something that's going to pick it up and drive it northward. The European model suggests it's going to stay put. Now, also keep in mind, we're still watching out here in the middle of the Atlantic. It looks like we got another decent wave that's going to be coming there off the coast of Africa, and we'll have to watch and see how that one traverses across the Atlantic here on a very atypical season. That's for sure. It's been one that's been a little underwhelming, but hopefully we can make it through the rest of the season without having a major hurricane strike the continental United States. Let's talk about the European model data. Okay, this is what I'm talking about here. This goes out for 10 days, and I do favor the European. It tends to be the little more consistent with the models as far as its trajectory. And this has been pretty consistent. What has changed on this model from yesterday's run is it's a little bit slower with its development. It does try to develop something out here in the Gulf as we go toward going toward next week. So let me pull up my pen here so I can illustrate this. So again, we're looking at something right in here, and then you see something up in this area for some dumb reason. I'm not sure why it's going that far north. But it's slow with its development, okay? So it's not showing anything in rapid succession. This is going out and through Sunday, the 30th, still not having anything there. So either we get something down in here that's just gonna sit there and spin for a little while, but it's not doing anything overly aggressive. We switch over to the American DFS model, and you get a completely different story here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. And you see with this one that it develops something here as I go ahead and take it through the timeline. it develops something here as we go toward the middle of next week, toward Wednesday. You see it there approaching the Yucatan. We got some sort of tropical depression there forming there as we head to late in the day on Wednesday. And then look what this thing does. It takes it out into the Gulf, spins it there for a little bit, and then brings it up toward the north as a hurricane. Looks like maybe a Category 2 hurricane getting close to Louisiana, and then making a landfall here pretty close to Mobile. Maybe as a Category 1, Category 2 hurricane here as we go into the following Sunday. So you got two different solutions there. One showing something out in here, just kind of sitting there, nothing there, or you got one that's going to show a hurricane. So again, big discrepancy in the models. Once we get something firmly developed, an actual tropical depression, the models will do a better idea. Right now, we're talking about something that hasn't happened yet, and this will change. So continue to monitor the activity, tune it back here, and I'll keep you updated here through all next week to see what exactly happens with our next tropical potential system there in the Gulf of Mexico. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the weather pattern across the continental United States, as this is the European model again, as we've got that system that's going to be ejecting out of the southwest here through the weekend. So what that's going to mean is areas out in front of this area, we'll be looking at some wet weather here from Colorado stretching back toward Illinois heading into Saturday and into Sunday, as that piece of energy is going to be ejecting out of the Rockies and into the plains. So again, watch that kind of traverse on out as we go through Monday, and then eventually going out into the middle of the country and up toward the Great Lakes. So that's going to come out. Then we got another little piece of energy here starting to pinch off here as we head toward Tuesday. You're seeing that little spin up there going through Utah into the southwest once again. And we continue to get these little spin-offs and break-offs from the main jet stream flow. A little early to be seeing that kind of pattern taking place here. But we do got a little bit of a troughiness here setting up here as we go toward late in the day on your Wednesday going into Thursday. So it looks like we'll see a little bit of cool air should be diving down here across portions of New England briefly. It's not a big one. As I was mentioning yesterday, not a lot of cool air up in Canada right now, as it's been running a bit above normal up that way. And it looks like this pinches off again. You see it kind of and pinches off with the spin up right through there. And that's significant. Again, we're talking about heading out to Saturday and Sunday. What's it going to do with that tropical system because of that big spin up right there? And then we got another spin up here out toward the west going in toward Sunday. So you got one out here, and then you got one here that kind of spins out across the Great Lakes as well. So kind of a convoluted, crazy looking pattern here, which is going to make forecasting of that tropical system definitely a little bit of a headache. Let's just put it that way. Because these spin ups like this are very hard to kind of forecast, and they typically don't stay consistent model run to model run, especially since we're talking about something between day 7 and day 10. That far out. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the precipitation. We'll break this down. Again, we're talking about this weekend. So as we go through the day on your Saturday, we're watching that rain increasing here across portions of Colorado, Iowa, going back over to Wisconsin. So the wet weather here expected here throughout the day on your Saturday, generally increasing, and that'll kind of linger into your Sunday. So if you're in that part of the country, just plan on some wet activities here. And the wet weather will continue there, moving off toward the Midwest as we go through the day on Sunday. So as you notice by Sunday late in the evening, you still got the rains there from Michigan stretching all the way back toward Texas. Again, a few of these thunderstorms will need to be monitored for potential severe. Don't look like it'll be too big a deal there, but that'll continue into your Sunday there. Now, let's go ahead and take a look for the week next week. That system will be pushing off toward the east. We'll have some unsettled weather there going into Tuesday morning there across the Great Lakes with some of the rains and a few rumbles of thunder there. Got a little bit of activity back here toward Utah, Colorado, and toward Texas, but most of the country really not looking all that bad for your Tuesday. And as we go ahead and progress this, again, remember we got this thing heading off toward the east there. Looks like we got a wet and damp conditions here on Wednesday for a lot of New England as that system pulls off toward the east. Does look like we get a little bit of a cool down a little bit behind that system right there. Not overly aggressive, but it looks like it will beat that back those above normal temperatures. But here's the big thing. It pinches off. You see it pinches off and does a little swirl. That is an upper level low feature that is sitting over the areas there of Michigan right there. So that's an upper level low feature, a little cool pool of air that's going to be spinning off right there. And again, that's going to have a lot to say on what's going to happen with our tropical system if we get something there developed. Again, we get some rains here diving to the south. You see some of this precipitation here breaking out here. And then what happens down in here? That's what's going to be watching as we go toward the late in the day on your Sunday. If that thing's going to actually get picked up and be moving northward at that time. it is surging some moisture here at the tail end of this run, coming up toward the Florida Panhandle as we go late in the day on your Sunday. Again, this is 10 days out and is definitely subject to change, but we're looking for trends. We're looking at how things are progressing. And then finally on this 10-day, you also notice we got a nice little system here out toward the west coming in with some rains across Montana and stretching back into Nebraska as well through the next weekend. Boy, you can't get in a nice little pattern setup. We're getting these western systems coming in on the weekend, so unfortunate with that. Let's talk about the rainfall, okay? Let's go look at the rainfall here over the next 10-day period. Again, we got the rain here through the weekend. Let's take this through the weekend first. We'll stop it here late in the day on your Sunday. So let's take this all the way out to 8 o'clock on Sunday. So you can talk about what I was talking about, a rainy period here through the entire weekend through Colorado, going through areas of Illinois, Missouri, some pretty decent rains there as well, maybe 1 to 2 inches there across Iowa. Not bad out here in the Pacific Northwest, looking pretty good. Southeast also not looking too bad. A little bit of rain activity here across Pennsylvania and Virginia here expected for the next 3 days there as well. But let's go ahead and take this thing all the way out, and we'll see this moisture that's going to be moving off toward the east. You see the rains there increasing as that system from the Midwest moves to the east into New England. So we get some pretty decent rains here by the time we head late in the day Wednesday across portions of the Midwest, stretching back from Indiana, going back to New York, Pennsylvania, and into West Virginia. And then you're definitely going to notice here as I take this all the way out, the moisture surging there out of the Gulf of Mexico. Tremendous amount of moisture and heavy rains here coming this way. Is it going to be associated with a tropical system of some kind? Well, remains to be seen. But again, beyond, I'd say 5 to 7 days, we're pretty set there. But beyond the 7-day, I do expect to see some major changes in that forecast, all driven by what exactly we get to develop in the tropics. It's going to have a big say for sure on what our forecast is going to do. Let's talk about the temperature anomalies here. This is the big picture. It's just your 10-day anomaly map here across the United States. And you can see most of the country, except for areas out here in the west, looking at fairly seasonable, showing a little bit of blue. It's really not by a lot. Really, it's not that big a deal. Let's go ahead and break this down by the regions. We'll go ahead and start here in the east first. Again, you're looking at areas out here looking at temperatures, we're talking 5, 6, 7 degrees above average here across the Midwest. The Southeast also looking 5, 6 degrees above average. Here in the plains, 5 to 6. Looks like I'm pretty much running anywhere 5 to 6 degrees above average for a lot of the country over the next 10 days here in the east. The central zone's also looking at temperatures in that same general hit, although down here in Texas, we're talking 8, 7, 8, 8, 7.5. You're looking at a lot of above normal temperatures there across Texas. Seasonable into the Intermountain region. It does show maybe a degree or two below average, but really not a lot as we look at the western region here. Maybe 1 to 3 degrees below average here for the Intermountain region. California, the interior running above average on the temperatures there, as well as parts of Washington State and a lot of Texas, western Texas, also looking at above normal temperatures there as well. Well, now we're going to talk about our next big thing, which is our winter weather outlook. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. We're going to head back over to the weather wall here, and we're going to talk about what we're going to expect seasonally here. All right, the first thing I do want to point out here on this map is our sea temperature anomaly map. This is looking at what we're seeing here. This is upwelling of cooler water here in the Pacific. That has a big impact on the overall weather pattern across the continent of the United States. And we're heading toward a La Nina. Remember last year, we were dealing with El Nino with the warming of these waters. Now it's the exact opposite, is the cooling of these waters. Now, as we look at the forecast here, here's September, we're seeing a strengthening of La Nina here. But as we go through the winter months, the trend is downward. So by the time we get toward February, we're kind of in a neutral phase. So I only highlight that because it looks like the forecast officially is going to go with what a typical La Nina is going to be. And that might be true for December, January, but I'm not so sure about February, okay? So here's your typical La Nina pattern. You got an active northern polar jet here, cold air up here, wetter in the northwest, wetter here in the Midwest. I know a lot of folks in Ohio, for example, got snow-starved last year. Well, this year might be a different story for areas there in the Midwest as far as seeing snow there, but drier and warmer across the southeast, all right? So as we take a look at the seasonal outlook, again, this is hot off the presses from yesterday on the 19th. Below normal temperatures here across the northwest and up toward the Montana and North Dakota. Big warming here across the southeast. Again, lines up pretty well there of what we were seeing with the seasonal, what La Nina typically brings. And then we look at the precipitation. Well, that lines up. We're getting wetter conditions here across the Northwest and the Midwest here because of the La Nina pattern, drier here across the South. So we'll see if this holds to fruition or two, because if it does, I would say we maybe snowier conditions across the areas of the Great Lakes potentially. Just kind of depends on where that cold air sets up. And then as we go into the neutral phase, all bets kind of go off. You can still get pretty good outbreaks here potentially later in the season, affecting areas of the deep south as well as we go later into the winter. So that is your winter outlook, folks, as we're looking here at a La Nina winter. That's what the folks from the Weather Service is going. Now, one thing we definitely learned from the tropical outlook season, remember we were expecting all these active hurricanes and we didn't get anywhere near that many. There are seasonal things or variables that we have to factor in when we're looking at the winter forecast. So this is just an extrapolation based off looking at years past, La Nina years past, but everyone is unique and everyone's a little different. And the fact that we got a La Nina that's going to start strong but start to weaken, I think that could mean some changes in what our winter forecast is going to be. So obviously the best place you can stay up to date on that is to stay tuned right here on the channel. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please consider go and hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you learn on future content. And as always, if you enjoyed the report, please leave me a comment down below and like it, share it with your friends. I'd like to invite as many people here to the channel. As we are growing, it's great to see, and we're moving in a great direction. All right, that is your update here for the weekend. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.